their first card was actually become more active and healthy. So the one thing that we did was had a good conversation about, okay, why is that important to you? And what we found is that the father actually passed away early. So he was sort of late 60s, and mother passed away early 70s. So that was a big thing for him, in making sure that he's healthy, that he's going to be around for his 4 daughters. So again, big family. They're very close-knit family. So it's something that's really important to them. The second one, and this is probably the more interesting one that I think, was there was a card called Live in a Better Place. So if you think about live in a better place, to me, my first thoughts are, okay, yeah, I want to live on the beach as well, beautiful sand. But his live in a better place was actually mentally. So this was the connection with, again, a business owner starting from scratch in retirement, going, wait up, I've got all this time now. What am I going to do with my life? Again, for his family, the kids have now gone through university. They now moved to different places, so they can't just come over for tea each night. So now he's actually going, okay, right, what am I? And I should say, very successful business person as well. So money's never really been an issue. But when we're talking about live in a better place, it was for him mentally is that retirement feeling that okay, what do I really want to be able to get out of the next 20, 30 years of my life? And again, a lot of it still comes back to its family.
But interestingly, what we had is that because the non-CFO went first, and then she went through her cards and did that, and then he went through his. And interestingly, from that, she was more critical of his cards than he was of her cards. There's a little bit of a flip there, which was interesting. And she was questioning his cards more. He sort of left her cards. And there was a difference in terms of the type of cards that some they aligned on. I think it was 2 they aligned on. The other 3 hers were much more about family, nurturing relationships, that sort of side, which obviously was something very important to her, family one. And him being a high D director type, it was all about, we've just got to get this stuff sorted, right? Not uncommon. And I think that was the catalyst that was getting her to push back a little bit on his values. So why is this not important to you? Well, he goes, no, it is important. You start to see the dynamic, it is important, but I just thought this is more, like they try and justify the cards. It's quite funny to watch. And it wasn't aggressive. And what they actually ended up with was what you see with those values is they start negotiating on what cards are important. And then they start to, compromise on what cards are important, and then you end up with what you end up with. And often, some will get some will get others. And finances was a big part. They wanted to feel more confident in their finances, so that was in the top 5. Spending more time with the family was a big one that they negotiated on. Spending without guilt was in there as well, which was an interesting one because they were quite wealthy. But it's interesting how there's still guilt associated with spending, even though you've got money. But again, I'm not assuming anything. I'm just allowing this to unfold. And then obviously that gives you that just amazing foundation for everything you do going forward. Because at any point in the next 12 months, or even after that, you can say, you remember we went through the values? You remember you picked these 5 things and you've told me why they're important to you. Well, are they still important? Well, yes, they are. So you can always bring it back to the value side. And it's such a powerful thing to bring them back to because they picked it, not me.
Yeah. And so I'm in a prospect meeting with let's call them Peter and Julie. Peter and Julie are running a super successful Melbourne-based business. They're a mid-30s couple, $4 million a year EBIT in this business. And I asked the question, what's important about money to you? And that number one question in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of the discovery meeting. And there was crickets, absolute silence. And I said, look, there's no hurry. There's no right or wrong answer. Take your time. But again, I understand you might not have been asked this question before, but I'm really interested to know what's important about money to you. And after another pause, and Peter, he didn't exactly start crying, but he started to well up. I mean, here's a 35-year-old guy making $4 million a year. And we're probably 2 or 3 minutes into the question, lots of pauses, lots of silence, take your time. And he said, David, I raised my kids on a dairy farm in Gippsland, riding motorbikes, chasing cows, kicking the footies. And I've just realised that here I am in the big smoke making all this money, and I've got 2 young kids, and I had the world's best upbringing, and I would love to bring my kids up the same way I was raised. Well, fast forward 5 years later, he gave me a call and said, David, thanks for that conversation we had 5 years ago. I've sold the business, I've cashed in, I've bought a farm, and we're taking the kids down there. So there's the power of that values-based conversation. I'm not asking them what your goals and your aspirations are. I'm saying what's important about money to you. And it can have a profound impact on people's lives.